Well, Lisa, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, you covered so much in the intro there. Thank you so much for that. Uh, just to touch on a few of those points. So my career before starting Glotrition was in television news. I was a news anchor and medical correspondent, which sort of is where my interest in science and science-based health products and services and all that started. And it was in that work as a medical correspondent that Glotrition, the idea for Glotrition was actually born. And that was because I was doing a story on research that was being done at the University of Utah on supplements and skin health. And, covered the story like I would any other story. But because I was also very interested in that topic, because I was starting to sort of see the signs of aging on those horrible high definition cameras, they were really cool about it. I said, well, what should I be taking? So they kind of curated a regimen for me. And it was, I say this all the time, just this handful of huge pills. But I did it and followed it for about 45, 60 days, really saw a difference in my skin, in the way I was feeling, in my, the health of my hair, like all these little touch points. So there was no doubt for me that the regimen worked. The doubt for me was just being able to stick with it. So, fast forward so many years later, I would always go back to that regimen. Like I drop off of it because it was so hard to stay with, and then I get back on it. And I just always knew that it was something that worked. So yeah, so the idea for Glotrition was born over lunch with a girlfriend when she had one of those little crystal light packets and she added it to her water. And I was, taking this handful of pills, and I was like, okay, that's the ticket. We need to find a way to get all of what I'm taking into a really easy to take, delicious formula. And yeah, and so that's our super beauty elixir, and that's how she was born. And this continues to be our bestseller. It continues to form the foundation of the Glotrition regimen, and yeah, it continues to be the fan favorite.
So that was the first product for
That was
Glo.
the first product, yes. And it's funny because you, when you and I say like accidentally launch a brand, which is sort of what happened. I was so focused on just getting, selfishly my own regimen in a way that I could, be sure that I would take it every day. Uh, that I wasn't really focused on building a brand around it. I was more focused on just like creating this one product. And when I we did our first order, well, we did our first order and it was a disaster. And I've told this story before. Um, it was, I'll share it again because it just is. If you are someone who is starting a brand and you go through so many iterations of a product, especially one like this, you've got to get not only the ingredients right, the efficacy right, you've got to get the taste right and the smell and the color and all the things. So the first time we went to manufacture Super Beauty Elixir, which was called something different back then, um, I was still working on television and I was hosting a 4th of July parade. Just like one of those things that you do, on the side when you're a news anchor. So we were doing the 4th of July parade, and I had my first batch of what's now Super Beauty Elixir. I think we ordered like 800 units or something, which was a huge number for me. I'm like, how in the world am I going to go through 800 units? So I mixed it in my water, and I had my little water bottle sitting next to me. And we were on this stage, and the sun was beating down. It was so hot. I mean, July in Texas. Um, and I picked up my water bottle and unscrewed the cap and went to go take a sip, and it was like rotten eggs. It smelled like rotten eggs. And I was just like, oh my God. And then I had to focus because we were doing a live television thing. So I couldn't think about it. Afterwards, I was in tears and I'm like, this is horrible. What's wrong with it? We found out that a couple of the ingredients that we used then were they were being affected by the UV light, and it was making, anyway. So it's like you go through these things that you think are the end of the world. And, like if you're dealing with anything like that, I'm going to tell you it's going to be okay. You just got to like get down, dust yourself off. So yeah, that was the first batch of Super Beauty Elixir, was a total disaster. And then, we've gone through several different formulas and manufacturers later. And it just like, yeah, that's my message, to stick with it. And I honestly don't remember where that story was going. But
I love that. I love that it kind of started organically, not really
it
with
did, yeah.
no
And
intentions really, but it's turned into this.
honestly, and that when we got the first batch of what is now the Super Beauty Elixir. And we knew it was great. And I say I knew it was great. And I was like, women will love this product. Men will love this. Like, it works for everyone. And I think the moment that I knew it was going to hit, I had taken, our first batch, and I literally would put it in the trunk of my car and drive around after I was done with my show that I was doing. I would drive around to med spas and doctors' offices, and literally like a vacuum salesman. I would, take it in and sell it. And I sold out really quickly of that first order. And I think I knew then that it was a message that people were excited about, because then, that was in what, 2015 maybe. The beauty from the inside out message wasn't really resonating with people. They didn't really understand the importance of collagen. We launched before Vital Proteins launched, right? And thank God for Vital Proteins, because they came in as a very well-capitalized company, well-capitalized brand. They hit the ground running, and they did all the education for me. So, that's another thing when you're starting a brand and you get upset because someone else comes out and they're doing the same thing you're doing and they seem to be doing it better or bigger. Just remember, they're spending all those marketing dollars on educating your customer. So, yeah, so that was a really great thing for us, actually. But yeah, we were that message was being fully accepted by the people who were face to face with people involved in aesthetics, those med spa owners. So yeah, we kind of knew that we had a hit on our hands, and everyone loved the taste of it, of course.
Mhm.
Plus, there's no added sugar and all that. So
So you had that one product when you first started, and literally like going around at first like a door-to-door
you're a
sales.
salesman. Yeah.
Um, how what was the moment when you knew it could be more than just this one product and it could be even more?
I think when our customers, first of all, we locked in on that customer loyalty really early. Our retention rate for customers is extremely high. And so I knew then, because of that, like, they were here and they were loving the product and they were leaning on me for these solutions. It wasn't just about what collagen can do for you. It kind of became about, okay, let's talk about the issues that women are facing as they come into their 40s and 50s. They're dealing with perimenopause as early as 35 and all those symptoms. Let's give them solutions for anything that they might be dealing with. And so, the gummy cuticles came after Super Beauty Elixir. The gummy format is a winner. We tried some of these products as tinctures, as little liquid tinctures at first. And then that was a disaster, because the shelf life for liquids is really difficult to keep unless you're putting a lot of um, uh, preservatives and bad stuff in it. So I knew that wouldn't really stick with our ethos and what our customers were expecting from us. So we moved to the gummies, and they were a big hit. And so then once we knew the format that people were really going to like, we just started churning out solutions for them. The first one was Afterglow, which it focuses on skin elasticity and skin tone. And it was kind of meant to be a partner to the Super Beauty Elixir, sort of like where the Super Beauty Elixir leaves off with collagen and elastin. Afterglow comes in and picks that whole message up. And then Sleep was our next one that we launched. And that is a hugely popular SKU for us, because not only are we focusing on the importance of sleep, as we get older, sleep becomes a little more elusive to us. But it wasn't just about sleep and being able to wake up feeling refreshed instead of groggy. It was about overnight skin renewal. We know that our skin works the hardest at night. So what can we put in our sleep gummies that's going to help boost that overnight skin renewal, so that we are always kind of giving a little nod to beauty wellness in all of our formulas. Let's see, Hair RX came after that. Um, because again, perimenopause, menopause, we get to a certain age and our hair growth slows down because that anagen growth phase just gets shorter. Well, Hair RX comes in and extends that growth phase for us, and helps encourage your hair to grow longer, stronger, faster, all that. And then Mood was the most recent launch because emotional balance, hormonal wellness, cutting PMS symptoms in half. Those PMS symptoms can get, really difficult to deal with as we move into perimenopause. Menopausal symptoms like hot flashes can be a bear to deal with, but with the Mood gummies, that we use a patented form of saffron. And if you've done any research on saffron, you know what it can do for emotional balance and brain health, everything. So we chose one that has really strong clinical studies behind it. And that's something that we do with the brand. And as a brand founder, I was like, okay, what am I going to stand for? What's important to me as a woman and as someone who takes her health seriously, takes healthy aging seriously? What would be important to me? Well, efficacy is number one. I want to make sure that I'm going to see results from these products that I'm paying really good money for. Um, we want to make sure that we're not loading everything with a ton of sugar, because sugar is so bad for your total metabolic health, but also for your skin. Um, anyway, and making things, approachable and making the messaging easy to understand and all that. So those were things that were important to me. And yeah, I think we've kind of nailed it with all of these products. They seem to be really kind of hitting the nail on the head when it comes to, women and what their concerns are with healthy aging and beauty wellness.
And they all taste really, really good.
Thank
Like
you.
all the gummies that I've had, they all taste really good too. Because sometimes when you're taking, some supplements and stuff, it like I've had other collagen supplements, doesn't taste good. I does not make me want to continue.
No, you're right. And it's so funny. And this is, I think, another really good lesson for anyone who's feeling entrepreneurial, especially in this space, is, the customer experience does matter. It matters with every single touch point, especially with your product. And so if you're doing topical products, it's all about, the feel of it and the scent and all those things. And of course, with products like ours, it's all about, the taste and the texture and the smell. And it's so funny because my ex, who was involved, when I first launched Glotrition with the Super Beauty Elixir, he had put a little money in, and he was like, you just got to get a product out there, it doesn't really matter. And I kept going back to the lab going, I don't like the color and I don't like the smell, and like we're not using the right fruit powders. And he was so frustrated because he was like, no, you just got to sell it, nobody cares, as long as it works, no one's going to care what it tastes like. And I was like, no, you're dumb. And you're a guy, so sit down, because that's not true. We do want it to be a pleasurable experience, and we want the efficacy and the results. And we want to be sure that we are feeling like we're not wasting money. And listen, in the beauty space, especially, it can be a black hole. So that was just one of the things that I was just like, what are we about? That's one of the things we're about. You're going to see results.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sharing that with us. I do have a question. Like for starting a product-based business,
Mhm.
what were some of the like early challenges? Because I can't imagine it's easy to start up a product-based business, like with funding and R&D and production and like
All
all
of
of
it.
those things. So like what were some of the biggest challenges that you
I
faced?
feel like this could be an entire conversation that we talk just about this. And it's so funny because I've often said, like, I would love to be in a position where I could mentor other entrepreneurs in this space, because if somebody else can benefit from all the mistakes that I've made, then I would love that. But yeah, it is difficult. And I always say, if I could go back and tell myself, my 11 years ago, what this road would be like, I often say, like, I wonder if I would have done it, because it is difficult and it does have its moments. Um, Glortrition's my daughter. She's the girl. She can be difficult, she can be frustrating, she's got these emotional highs and lows. And that is what it's like. I would say that being the funding is a big piece of it. You can build something beautiful. You can have a great product and a beautiful website, but if you don't have the money to support those things, if you don't have the money for inventory, if you don't have the money for the proper build out so your customer journey online is good, if you don't have any money for digital ads or influencers or all that, it just becomes very frustrating. So, some sort of funding is really critical. Now, I know a lot of brands that do crowdfunding and have great success with that. So that's certainly something that I would tell people to look into and to try. But going to your friends and family when you're first starting and saying, I have this idea and I'm super passionate about it, and use them kind of as your focus group too. Tell them what your brand is going to be about and what these products are going to be about and what problems you're going to solve for people. Because at the end of the day, as a founder, it's your story that people are going to be attracted to. They want to know why you started this, and are you all in on it, and that you have your hands kind of in everything. And so it's kind of useful, I think, to use those friends and family as a way to sort of like hone your message. And at the same time, hopefully they can help support you a little bit that way. But yeah, the funding is a big piece of it. Um, if you do have the funds to surround yourself with a team when you're launching, that's an amazing thing that I didn't have when I first launched. I did everything by myself. So, like, if you need me to build you a website, I can do that. If you need me to code the back end of a website for you, I can do that. I can formulate a product. I can do packaging design. I can work with vendors and manufacturers and co-packers, and you learn a lot. And I would say that's the best way to do it. It's the most frustrating way, but it's the best way, because I know now, because I've worn every hat in this business, I know exactly how to manage a team that we have now that are doing many of the same jobs that I was doing. So, um, yeah, surrounding yourself with great people when you have the ability to do that is super important. Up until then, just roll up your sleeves and be ready to learn, because the amount of dashboards and processes that I had to learn, um, yeah, it's a lot. But you do what you have to do. And again, when you're bootstrapping something, you dive in and you do it all, you know.
Yeah, definitely wear a lot of hats as an entrepreneur,
Yes.
even after you have a team.
Yes, that's true. And I think what I found helpful is scheduling out my time, and scheduling it really like 30 minutes at a time, and staying true to that schedule as much as I can. Of course, things during the day, days kind of blow up a little bit, but
Yeah.
you know, staying true to that when you are starting a business, if you're starting a business from home, um, be structured in the way you spend your time, and be focused that way. And you know, set a to-do list, check them all off. Don't cut yourself any slack that way, you know,
Mhm. Yep. Very.
all those things that we all know as we are entrepreneurs and starting new things.
Yeah. I always tell people I pretty much live and die by my Google Calendar. Like that's literally, I have to live my
Yes.
life.
But then you also have to learn this trait of being flexible and going with the flow, because you can have everything planned out and the things that you need to get done, but then something happens, like, someone calls you and says, we've had a horrible issue with our packaging and they didn't print it right. And or you get the samples of a new product and it's not right. And there's just lots of things that happen. I'm trying to think of like the most recent problem that we had. We get a lot of things that happen with the website. And so I'm always telling our team, like, you guys need to log into our website, every day and take the customer journey, make sure everything's still working, make sure everything's still connected, because technology sometimes doesn't work in our favor. So yeah,
And you ask them to do that almost every day. That's a really good idea.
do that daily. Yeah, make sure everything's working. I mean, as a direct to consumer business, our website is everything. So, and we have a lot of like our tech stack for the website is deep. So we have a lot of different, plugins and widgets and things like that that need to be talking to each other. And so, yeah, so I encourage them to please log in every day and, take the journey, add things to your cart, try to check out, make sure everything's working correctly.
I love that. Before I go on to my next question, I just for the people who are logged on today, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we're going to come back to it towards the end. And then also don't feel free to use the chat, like to make comments, or as you have a question, as Lisa's talking about something, go ahead and add it to the chat there. But feel free to use that chat. And also we'll be sending everybody some links to some of the products that we're talking about as well. So if you hear about anything that you are intrigued by and you're like, oh my gosh, I need those mood gummies, or I need the sleep gummies, we'll be sending you some product links.
Oh my gosh. And can I just say something about that just because you mentioned the mood gummies? So one of the cool things about Glotrition is that we use active ingredients that are clinically, just deep in clinical science, but lots of clinical studies done on the active ingredients that we use. And so our supplier for those ingredients, our different suppliers will just randomly send me new clinical studies that have been done on that active ingredient. And we just got a new one in on mood. About the saffron that we use in mood. It's been shown to reduce situational stress in as little as 30 minutes after just one dose. And that was like, that blew my mind. So I have them here. I literally have them on my desk so that whenever anything starts to, like my day starts to spiral, I'm like, okay, no, I need to. Anyway, that's just, you mentioned mood, and we just got that study in, and I think it's so cool.
Yeah, and I saw you just recently posted something on your Instagram that you were having like a really bad day, and like
Yeah.
the smooth gummies really
And
help.
to know that it can work that quickly, to just sort of like balance your mood and to boost those serotonin levels, and work in situational, stressful situations, which we all have. You may not have, you may not need to take it every day, although consistent use is going to really help kind of with those depression symptoms and things like that. But yeah, for situational stress, that's that's the ticket.
Good to know. So yeah, everybody who's listening, we'll be sending you a link to several products, but especially those mood gummies. Let's see. We have some questions from the audience. I will get to those. I have a few other questions that I wanted to ask Lisa. Well, something that you kind of brought up a little bit, but I would love to hear. Have there been moments of doubt and or burnout, and how did you push through and beyond?
Yes.
Keep going, basically.
I love this question because anyone who is in the process of starting a business or even has an idea that they would like to turn into a business, it is something that we all go through. And it doesn't matter, when I first started the business and I got, sold my first order to a med spa, and it was like 6 units, and I was so excited about it. To now where we are now as a company, it just, your problems don't change, they just get bigger. And the best way I've found to deal with things is to sort of like check yourself. Just remember where you're at, remember where you used to be, and give yourself grace, celebrate those little small wins, so that when you have the failures, and I'll just call them what they are, they are failures. Something fails and you have to get back up, and you have to, resilience is probably the best trait as an entrepreneur. If you are someone who, when something gets you down and you have a real tough time getting yourself back up, then that might not be the career path for you. Entrepreneurship is tough, and you really do need to be resilient. You need to, like I always say, when I hear no, when we're trying to find retailers to carry Glotrition, when I hear no, it's not no, it's just no, not right now, or no, not this way. And so that sends me back to the drawing board, and I figure out a way. You have to be a little tenacious. You have to be very focused. Yeah, it's tough. You get kicked down a lot and you hear no a lot and you get doors slammed in your face a lot. We just had a big retailer that we were about to enter over 800 locations, and we were so excited about it, and we were just waiting for the purchase order, and we just heard from the buying team that they were taking a different direction, and instead of beauty wellness they were focusing on, active nutrition lifestyle or whatever. And it was like, oh, wow. I mean, that was a big, big hit. But instead of just saying, okay, thanks, well, let us know when the focus changes, I was like, okay, well, instead of the beauty wellness products, instead of like Super Beauty Elixir and Afterglow and Hair RX, let's talk about sleep and mood, because these are really helpful products as it relates to an active nutrition lifestyle. Like, these are products that can support that lifestyle for people. So let's talk about that and how those fit. And sure enough, she emailed me back. She goes, that sounds great. Will you send me, that's a different buying team, but they office with me. So just send me the deck again of those products and we'll see if we can make that happen. So it's just tenacious. Just no is not no. It's just not the way you've presented it. So go back to the drawing board, present it again. I can't tell you how many times I have sent emails to buying teams at certain retailers and we keep getting no's. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep sending them because at some point you're going to say yes. At some point it's going to be a great fit, you know?
I love that. And yeah, I love the no, we've all heard like no, not at this time, but I love thinking of it as no, not in this way, not the way you've presented it. That's a really different mindset shift there to think of it that way.
Yeah, it's helped me in a lot of situations, and it's actually gotten me to a yes a lot faster in some situations. I mean, before COVID, we were selling in Nordstrom, Bloomingdale, Saks, Anthropologie, Soft Surroundings. We had QVC airings, every couple weeks. And then, COVID hit and retail shut down and we had to pivot to direct to consumer. And now we're at a point where we think it makes sense to be a little more omni-channel and get back into some retail. But I didn't want to do it the way we did it before. Luxury retail is not the place for these products. We tried it. Nordstrom was my favorite retailer, and they were the first ones to put beauty wellness kind of on the map in that sort of luxury retail setting. But I don't think that it did great for them because that consumer she's not going to Nordstrom to buy supplements, So this time around, our focus is more on, the Targets of the world and the grocery chains of the world, because we did these little grab and go packs of our gummies specifically for that channel, because everyone has those activated checkouts now, where you go through the maze and there's like thousands of products in front of you. So I would even I'll hit up Home Goods for these. No, I have no problem doing that. Is it a product that you typically see in Home Goods? No, but if you've walked through their checkout, so I'm always thinking about that when I'm out and about and I see something, I'm like, you wouldn't think that that would fit. But then when you get into the store and you're like, wait, they have this brand and this brand, and you see people like bored in line and they're just randomly grabbing crap and throwing it in their cart. I'm like, well, everybody needs a good night's sleep. So here's your sleep gummies, And so we tested these out at a local market here and they sold out like in 2 days. So I think it's a good channel for us. But yeah, you have to adapt, you have to change, you have to, I feel like it's always like this game of whack-a-mole. But you get really good at it after a while. So stick with it.
Whack-a-mole is a very good analogy.
Yeah, it's true. Or that
Um,
like rock'em sock'em robots. Do you remember those where you just
yes, yes.
you're always getting like punched in the face? Yeah. Yeah. That's owning your own business, folks. Get
Getting
punched in the face every day.
punched in the face a lot, yeah. And coming back, but just
Mhm.
bouncing back. Um,
May I
so
have another?
we talked about like burnout and like some no's and some not so great moments. Tell me, what are some of like the moments that happened to you and you were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening right now?
I
Like,
mean, we sold out thousands of units in 6 minutes on QVC, and we did that over and over again. I was like, they were pinch me moments because I thought, you know, it resonates with people. So I just need to get a bigger megaphone. I just need to get it in different retailers and get it in front of more people, because once they learn about the brand and once they try our products and once they see how they work, like they're in. They're instant disciples of ours. So it those moments when I have validation of that are the biggest moments for me. And the validation could look big, like QVC, or it could look small, like a really sweet review that a customer sends. Or people DM me on Instagram all the time with the sweetest messages of like how the mood gummies have changed their lives and like literally saved their marriage. Or, you know, like people get, when something has a significant effect on someone's life, they get very dramatic about their testimonies. And I love that because it reminds me why we're doing this at this point. You know, what started as a very selfish thing for me, just being vain and I wanted a solution for myself, um, has turned into just this crusade of helping women get through these years that are challenging. I mean, hormonal imbalance touches every part of our lives as we move into, our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond. It's no joke. And so having products that you can lean on that are going to help, and having a brand that's led by someone who is you. I know what we deal with and I know what our concerns are. And so if I can make that just a little bit easier for someone. Anyway, so I love getting those notes and messages and having those moments. Those are special.
I love that because sometimes it's so much easier to focus on some of those negative reviews and stuff that you get. Like when you get those positive ones, they mean a lot, don't
Yeah,
they?
they sure do.
All right, so we have some questions that came through in the chat. So this question is from Ashley Victoria. Ashley Victoria, do you want to go ahead and come off of mute and ask Lisa your question?
Hi,
Yes,
Ashley.
for sure. Hey, Lisa, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Um, I do have a question. A lot of us on this call, we still have our 9 to 5, right? We still have our bill-paying job. And then, after we clock out for the day, we go to work, right? So I guess my question is like, when did you know to leave your 9 to 5, right? And to take on, Glotrition full time? And was there a process that you used either, mentally or if you wrote it down, like to be able to work your way to stay, to walk away from your 9 to 5 and to really bring this to life?
Mhm. Yeah, for me, I always just backed into it. So I knew how much I needed to cover my life each month. And it was just a very simple equation of, how many orders do I need to get in the door for me to do this and replace my job. For me personally, it was a little bit of kismet because the show that I was doing at the time was canceled. And so I had this real tough moment of, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this full time, or am I going to go look for another TV job? Um, and that was that moment where it just coincided nicely for me, where I was like, okay, if I really buckle down. And I was living with my ex at that point. We were engaged, and so he was like, I've got the bills, I'll cover the house, you just cover your stuff. And if you can cover your stuff, then I think you should do this full time. So yeah, it's scary though. I think just I always had that in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just go find a job. It's not the end of the world. You just, if you're not making enough money, then you go find another job, Um, but yeah, I think that's always that tough point for an entrepreneur is, okay, when am I ready to take the training wheels off and do this full time? So it's a great question.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, AV. All right, a few more questions. We did have another question from Julie. Um, And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but Julie, did you want to go ahead and ask Lisa your question?
Yeah, hi Lisa.
Hi.
So I'm wondering, after you've had a big success, like after you really hit it and you're like, I reached my goal, I'm there. And I've heard that it's
Hasn't happened yet, by the way, but go ahead. Because
okay.
the goal keeps getting higher and higher.
Well, I've heard that what happens like after you hit a big goal, sometimes there's a complete breakdown. Like I've heard other entrepreneurs say that. And I'm wondering if you've had that happen, and if so, like how did you rebuild after that kind of failure or breakdown, or however you define it as like, not as successful?
Yeah. My breakdowns were usually emotional, you know. So I would like, it's kind of like, when there's such a high stress level and then everything works out and it's great. And then you have like that slump, you know what I mean? So mine were usually emotional, but sometimes with a business, yeah, we would be trucking along great and things are trending up. And then something happens, like, we've had this happen before with Super Beauty Elixir is our biggest seller. We have the most subscribers for that product. And we had something happen several years back when we were still trying to figure out like our inventory, how to track it. And it's just like this very nuanced thing. And we were still doing it manually. We ran out of stock. And I was just like, wow, okay, well, this is where we go out of business. Because I couldn't afford to lose all those subscribers. That monthly subscription income is what makes our business. So it was very, very scary. We had to do some fancy footwork, and we had to pull inventory back from Amazon. We had to uh, we had little 10 packs of the Super Beauty Elixir at the time. We had to ship people, 3 of the 10 packs instead of, their full 30 days. So like you figure it out, but those times are scary. And you know, I've always tried to communicate with the customers because I really do feel like we're all girlfriends because we're all kind of in this together and we all have like the same concerns. Um, so I, was sending emails and videos to them going, I'm so sorry. And these are growing pains and, we're going to get through it and we're going to take care of you the best we can, but just wanted you to know what's happening and, stick with me, please. So, um, yeah, those moments happen. And I think the most important thing about it is you stay focused on the bigger goal and you stay in constant communication with your customers because people are interestingly super understanding, especially when they feel that they're part of the process. And that means sometimes, part of the problems and part of the solution. So um, having that kind of relationship with the customers, I think is super important. I hope that answered it.
Thank you for that answer. And you mentioned something when Julie was asking her question about how you haven't you haven't hit your goals yet because they keep kind of moving. So that actually leads to one of my questions is how do you define success and has that definition changed since you started your business?
Yeah. Yeah, it does change. It does change. It becomes just like multidimensional, I think. Success is such a strange word, right? Because, most of us would equate that with financial success. And that goal keeps moving, you know, and sometimes it's correlated with, the number of products that we have or like the number of customers that we have um, or just like I said, having those touch points with customers when they let me know their kind of success stories with Glotrition or, what they're happy about a product. So um, the success touch points are become multidimensional like that. And, there are more of them. And I think, yeah, it keeps moving. I move the line on myself. Like I see the tape at the finish line, like I'm running for it. And then like I mentally just move it further because I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know. But I think I'm like a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, okay, we did this. This was great, but what can we do next? Now maybe we can hit that. A big goal for me is Ulta. Like I want our products in Ulta, and I don't understand why they're not there. I think they're perfect. I think especially with the checkout things, these are perfect. And we keep getting no's. And so I'm just like, we will have a success with that. But then I'll celebrate it for a second, but then I know there's going to be another one right after it. But it is important to celebrate those small successes because they're not small, they're huge, actually. And if you go back to the person you were when you first started your brand and you told her, I always say that, like, if I told myself when I first started this that we were going to sell out in 6 minutes on QVC, thousands of units, I would never have believed it. And so it is important to celebrate those moments. And I get on myself about that too, because I don't really allow myself to do that as much, because then once you have a big moment like that, then all the problems start to spin in your head. Like, okay, where are we on inventory? Like with the QVC thing, it was, we only had Super Beauty Elixir at the time. And so QVC is all about like, what's new, what do you have? And we didn't have anything else. And so we weren't getting as many airings. And now, we're back in the game with QVC because we just have so much to offer now. But anyway, you start thinking about those problems, and so I guess I would just say, try not to do that right away. It's inevitable that you're going to think about those things, but try to just take a deep breath, have a glass of wine and be like, you did it, girl. I'm so proud of you, and then move on to the problems.
So funny. I'm over here, everything you're saying about, you know, cheering your small wins, but your brain automatically starts going to the problems or to the next thing. I'm over here like
They're going to
be nodding my head. Like,
yeah. I mean, they're going to be there. You can't avoid them. So it's hard to not think about those and how you're going to handle them. But it's important to be proud of yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple more questions, but we have a couple minutes left, and I just wanted to make sure we answered. If anybody else had any questions specifically for Lisa, go ahead and put it in the chat, or just turn on your microphone and go ahead and ask. This is your chance. Ask her.
Happy to answer anything. I'm pretty much an open book. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm like, I'll talk about it all. This is a passion for me, though, like helping other women who want to start a business or are in the midst of a business. I just love that because, like I said before, if somebody has to benefit from all the mistakes I've made,
All right, if anybody does think of something, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to your question. I know sometimes it is frightening to ask some questions. So Lisa, a couple more for you. So share with us one beauty or wellness product that you can't live without. That's not a Glotrition product. Is there anything that you use that you're like, oh my gosh, I make sure you put SPF on every day or something like that?
Yes, of course we use SPF every day. One product that I use daily, and I've been using this for, oh my gosh, like decades, is by SkinCeuticals, and it's the CE Ferulic. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And I use that every single morning. What else can I like not live without? I take a vitamin D3 and K supplement every single day. I take 5,000 IUs. Vitamin D is so important for so many metabolic, cellular processes. And so I've done that for a really long time. What else? Then I have like different makeup products and things that I use periodically. I'm always kind of like switching those things up. And yeah, outside of the Glotrition products, which I actually really do use every single day and have been using for years, and it is what I credit most with, the health of my skin at 56. I feel like that daily dose of our bioactive collagen and all the antioxidants and everything that are in the Super Beauty Elixir really, really pay off. But consistency is key with any supplement. You got to do it every day, stick with it.
Yeah, Does
So.
anybody else write down vitamin D and I'm writing down all the stuff that you're saying. Um,
Also prioritizing sleep. I talk a lot about that too on my Instagram. Is like, especially as we get older, there are just certain non-negotiables in my life now, and sleep is one of them. So, my friends make fun of me for it, but I'm like, no, what time is it? I am lights out by 10 p.m. Like I'm usually in bed, by 8:39
mhm.
and sound asleep by 10. And yeah, it's a priority for me. Now, of course, do we have moments where we're out celebrating with friends or whatever, or traveling? Yes, but for the most part, that's a huge one for me. And I'll tell you, when you do prioritize your sleep and you do all the things to just make your sleep the best quality, you really do see it in everything else that's going on in your life. You really do. Um, yeah, it's a big thing. Also, eating clean. That's a big one for me. Eating organic is at the top of my list. Do I have cheat days and cheat meals? Like, of course, but I think I'm talking more about just the overall quality of your food. Um, should be a focus for sure. Intermittent fasting is another one that I wholeheartedly believe in. Just the cellular benefits that you get from that. I think when it comes to healthy aging is kind of a game changer. So I usually do like a 6-hour eating window during the day. What else? The amount of food that we eat, I think, is, we've got this epidemic in this country, especially of just metabolic disaster. And I think a lot of it is those things that I just mentioned, but then also the amount of food that we eat. It's just too much. Your body shouldn't be digesting food 24/7 because that takes it away from all the other important jobs that it has to do. Metabolizing food is the biggest expenditure of energy in our bodies. So if you can give your body a break, then it has the ability to go and do all those other things that are important, especially for healthy aging, like cleaning out your cells and cellular energy and all those things. All the mini repairs that need to happen to our joints and our muscles and all that.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, and when I hit my 40s that I did was I started to eat off of the smaller plates when I
Mhm.
would have a meal instead of like the normal big size plates, and that little tiny change was such a big change for me. And so
Yeah. And when you get used to reducing your portion sizes, and you get used to eating that way, when you go to a restaurant and you get this like massive plate of food, I always take food home.
yeah,
I can't tell you the last time I cleaned my plate at a restaurant.
yeah,
Yeah, you get used to it and your body will thank you for it. It's a healthier way to live. It's just by not constantly feeding, you
yeah.
know, constantly feeding it food.
Well, we have a couple more questions that came in. Let's see. There's another one from Julie. Julie, do you want to go ahead and ask Lisa your other question? Okay,
Sure.
go ahead.
So I was wondering what you would tell that version of you who is still in TV, what she was about to experience as an entrepreneur.
Oh, I think I would tell her, wow, you thought TV was all there was to life. You are about to be taken to school, girl. You are going to learn from the school of hard knocks, what it means to create a brand and build a business. But you're going to do great, sweetie. In the words of Chris Jenner, you're doing great, sweetie. Um, yeah, it's hard to prepare yourself for what this journey is, this entrepreneurial journey, no matter how it's, whether it's a product-based business, service-based business, whatever you're doing, it's almost impossible to fully prepare for it, you know?
You never know. No one day is the same. That is for sure.
Yeah.
I know she had just had to log off, but Ashley Victoria also wanted to ask if it's okay. I'm going to just ask it. How old were you when you started Glotrition?
I was, let's see, it was 11 years ago and I'm 56 now. So
So mid 40s.
I'm like, I'm glad you did the math because
Yeah.
math, and I'll tell you what else, spreadsheets, not my strong suit. And that is also one thing that even though we say like you have to wear all the hats as an entrepreneur, um, when you are able to start building out a team, find find people who can do everything that you do. And if they can just do it 80% as well as you can, then be happy with that. That's great. But you'll find people who are much better at things than you are. And yeah, like the people who look at our spreadsheets now are much better at that than I am.
I'm a sucker for spreadsheets. I love a good spreadsheet, but yeah.
And I think that's good. Like I always say, like if I could go back and tell myself, like here are the things that you need to get really good at, it would be spreadsheets. Like learn how to build one and learn how to read them and have that be like the way that you know take in information. And then the other one would have been to learn Photoshop
Hmm.
because I saved so much money designing my own packaging and even the stuff that we have now is based on a design from me. So I learned how to use Canva instead. That was a good thing to learn. But yeah, I wish I would have known like Adobe Illustrator or something like that.
Yeah, and that just goes back to what you kind of said at the beginning, where it's good when you're first starting out to get dabble in all of the things that you're gonna do. You have to wear so many hats because that way you know how to what to tell somebody how to do it.
But then you find people who are just better at
But yes, and then you get to the point where yes.
they still have the big vision, but they're just much better at execution.
Yeah. And I'm not to like harp on your age, but I think that it's amazing just as an example of like that you can take a pivot, you can totally change your career, you can start your business at any age. You don't.
Honestly, if that's the one thing that I hope that people take away from this is, you know, restarting or pressing the reset button at any age is doable. It's it makes me sad when people say like, well, I've been married for 30 years and I'm my kids are out of the house and I don't really know what to do with myself and I don't know where to start and it's so overwhelming and all of those things are true, but it's also true that you can do it. You just have to dig in and start. It's just, those first few steps and don't quit. I mean, you know, resilience and tenacity, right?
Yeah, that's the name of the game. Well, as we're going to wrap up because we're almost to the end of our session, just tell us a little bit about what's next for Glotrition.
Like, what is next for Glotrition? Well, like I said, we
Besides,
are,
besides getting into Ulta, because
yeah, I
we're
know.
all
Can
going
we
to
get,
manifest that for you.
thank you. I was going to say, like, let's put that energy out there so that we get a yes from them. We're back with QVC, so you'll be seeing some QVC airings soon, probably July timeframe. We're hoping. We have another product that is in R&D right now that is formulated to sort of suppress your appetite in a natural way. There's a peptide that we found that is very interesting and has some amazing clinical studies behind it showing appetite reduction. It works on the hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, and helps modulate those. So that's exciting. We think that will launch probably first part of Q4, like before the holidays, to give us all help before the holidays.
That is exciting. We will have to be on the lookout for that one.
Yes, and then look for these guys because I'm hoping that you'll see our little grab and go packs in, grocery stores and retailers near you in the checkout. So
I'm not going to lie, when I go to my grocery store and I see them in my checkout, I'm going to start like shouting and I'm going to,
oh my gosh, please, and then send me a picture.
yeah, okay, deal. And I'm going to tell the people who are behind me in line, oh, you really need these.
Yes. We have to put that out in the universe too. I also was thinking this morning, like Starbucks would be a great place to have like some of these, like sleep and mood. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of work ahead of me.
Well, Lisa, thank you so, so much for joining us today. Is there anything that you want to leave the group with? Anything? I mean, we covered a lot.
That we haven't covered, just, just a reminder that, you can do it, whatever it is that is feeling overwhelming to you. Just sit with it and break it down into small pieces and just start tackling them, you know, and you'll get there. And it's a great journey. It is not without tears and frustration, but it's a great journey. And yeah. And I'm happy to help. Like, just DM me on Instagram. I'm at Glow with Lisa P. And I'm always happy to answer questions. And I actually really want to do a retreat. So that's another thing we need to like put out there and manifest for, because I always thought that would be just a really fun thing to do. Just like a women's retreat where we can talk about all things healthy aging and entrepreneurship and
Ah,
rediscovering who we are at a in our 40s, 50s and beyond.
love that. Let us, when you're ready for that, let us know how Sass can help you promote that or get that out to people.
You.
So thank you again. Thank you so, so much for taking the time and joining
Having me. This was so fun, you guys. Thanks.